Samuelson, and I'm a graduate student here at Texas A&M University in the Weed Science program. The project that we're standing in here is an area-wide project funded by the USDA, and it's a cover crop project specifically working in cereal rye, followed by soybean. Cover crops up to this point in Texas are not highly adopted, and so we're just kind of experimenting to see what is adaptable for this region in southeastern Texas. The objectives of this particular project are to observe how termination timing of the cover crop impacts weed suppression. So that includes 3 termination timings: a late termination time, which would be 2 weeks prior to planting of the soybean, a mid-range, so about a month prior to, and then an early, which would be about 6 weeks prior to planting of the soybean cash crop. Within this particular treatment, we can see there's nothing right here. This is our standard treatment, no cover crop whatsoever, trying to keep it as weed-free as possible. So just bare soil. Here in the next few weeks, we'll introduce our soybean crop. Where I'm standing now was the early, so this was 6 weeks termination prior to the planting of the soybean. Not as good of biomass accumulation, but you can still see really good weed suppression. The allelopathic tendency of this particular cover crop really does a great job at keeping broadleaves and grassy weeds at bay until you're ready to plant. It'll also provide residue biomass that you can see is still just laying on top, and that will stay there for the next month or so before it completely decomposes. Continue to provide weed suppression for the soybean crop. So here is the mid-range termination timing, and you can see that we did start to get past the flag leaf stage and to get some seed heads on there. A little more biomass was accumulated than the earlier timing. So this is a good mid-range, I would say. This is a cereal rye that was planted in mid to late November, and this will be terminated in the next few days. So this is 2 weeks prior to planting. This is as much biomass as you accumulate in this area with respect to cereal rye. So after 3 years of conducting this experiment, a few things that we've learned is a grower in Texas typically does not adopt no-till systems, and so if they're going to move towards a no-till management system, they got to make sure they have the proper equipment to get adequate establishment. That was the biggest obstacle that we had, was getting good soybean establishment within some of these covers. Some of our equipment wasn't completely up to date with respect to no-till systems. I think that cereal rye does have great potential in Texas. It's a great growing system. If we get enough cold nights, good vernalization, and a little more biomass accumulation from that cereal rye, and continue to provide awesome weed suppression.